Hey friends, welcome to the Swing My Heart podcast. Come join me, your host Nicole, for some hope-filled conversations about heartfelt entertainment that makes your heart swing. Hey Hearties, welcome to the Swing My Heart podcast. I'm your host Nicole, and today Theresa and I will be talking about When Calls the Heart, Season 10, Episode 7, Best Laid Plans. It was written by Elizabeth Stewart and directed by Elise Leet Rogers. When a former student visits, Elizabeth thinks she may need her help. Meanwhile, Lucas orders something for all of Hope Valley to enjoy, if they can get it to work. What did you think about this episode, Theresa? Your first thoughts?
My initial thoughts was just that, we got halfway through and I'm like, okay, and then the second part of the episode started happening and things started happening, I don't know, just twists and turns. And I was like, oh, wow. And we ended on a cliffhanger,
Yes.
which hasn't happened yet this season. So
Yeah.
I really feel like this was the first episode that kind of got things moving. And I feel like the rest of the season is just going to get progressively more, intense, but in a good way. Intense, though, for the rest of the season.
Yes, so I think so, too.
Yeah.
I think the biggest part of this episode was focused on Rosaline and her return to Hope Valley. So why don't we just talk about that for a little bit?
Yes.
What a special reunion it was to see her back with her mom and Elizabeth and all of her friends, especially Emily and Opal.
Yes. I loved that. I love the little detail of her coming into the classroom and all the kids that knew her when she was there. They're all like, "Oh, Rosaline!" I loved how they recognized her. Yes. And everyone was just really happy to have her back. Yeah. I loved having her back. I low-key want her to be a regular on the show.
Yeah, I would love to see that. I
really like having her back. Yeah.
Yeah. I like how they added the detail of the apple and the book on Elizabeth's desk.
Yes, that was fun.
And the book, I caught the title of it. I had to pause it, but I caught the title of the book, and it is The Life of Florence Nightingale.
Oh, okay, that makes sense because Rosaline's talking about certain things,
nursing,
and I'm sure we're influenced by that book. So,
yes,
yeah, but I'm sure we'll get to that in a minute. But yes, that's very interesting.
To start off the episode, I loved the journal entry from Elizabeth. She says, every season in Hope Valley has its own special charms, but there's no better time of year than when the flowers are in full bloom. The sun is warm, the days are long and gentle, and everything seems right with the world.
Okay, quick question about this journal entry.
Yeah.
I feel like we've heard it before. And I feel like I've heard her write this particular passage before.
It's possible.
I would need to look it up, but I believe that it's a very similar journal entry to her first journal entry in season 8. The very first scene of season 8, she gives a very similar journal entry, and I kind of want to go back and re-listen to it. But I remember hearing her give this one in this episode, and I was like, I've heard this before. Yeah. I know I have. I've heard at least part of it.
I'll have to go back and watch.
Yeah, so I might have to go back and check that out. But to me, it stood out because I was like, wait a minute. I've heard this before.
Yeah, and it wasn't exactly the same wording, but the part when it says the days are long and gentle, it kind of, in a way, now it might just be me, it reminded me of something that was in season 1. I think it was a quote from a poem or a book that had a line with something along the lines of the days of wine and roses. I think you probably know which one I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that does sound familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, they're adding a bunch of little details in there.
Yes.
When Calls the Heart has always been big on
Yeah.
like poetry and like
Yeah.
literature and everything like that. So I feel
Yeah.
I could see that being
Yeah.
referenced.
Yeah. I love how Henry is continuing to work in the garden. I thought that was very
Mhm.
thoughtful.
Yeah. It's cool because
Yes.
there's this trope in literature where gardens can be restorative
Mm-hmm.
and they can help you to kind of almost like organize your life. It's like a visual of you organizing your mental space, if that makes
Yeah.
any sense, and then growing new life and taking care of new things. Like you have Secret Garden. I don't know if
Yeah.
you've read that book, all
It's
about
been a
that.
long time since I've
Yeah,
read
it's
it.
all about how a garden transforms a very unhappy
Yeah.
girl into a happy girl. I saw
Yes.
a movie called The Beautiful Fantastic, which is a great
I
movie.
think I've heard of that. I have never
Hmm.
seen it, but
It's a great movie, would highly recommend. Great actors in it, but it's all about how a garden helps a woman to kind of overcome
hmm,
OCD, which
that's
is very
interesting.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But in Henry's case, it's helping him to overcome this guilt that he
Yes,
feels.
that's
And
true.
I love that. I
Yeah.
think the garden aspect is so smart.
Yes. Going back to the reunion with Elizabeth, she says that she can only stay a week since the family she nannies is moving to South Carolina from Cape Fullerton. Okay, being from South Carolina, I gotta say, I loved that mention.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, to me, any mention of like the South of North America to me is
Yeah,
like, oh, that's home because that's kind of
yeah.
where I am
Oh,
too. But
yeah, that's awesome.
yeah,
Yeah.
so when I heard that, I was like, oh, they're gonna be close by.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. This scene, Rosaline has a brief talk with her mom, and then they both see Henry, and she's not happy that he's still there. Now, this is what we see in the promo from the previous week when Molly says he isn't the same man. Time has changed him. He let dad and the other miners die in that mine. Nothing will ever change that. Oh, the heartbreak.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, we've all seen Henry's redemption
Yeah.
and him building himself back up, and we're all rooting for Henry and his
Hmm.
redemption. But I 100% can understand where Rosaline's coming from. She
Yeah, I
hasn't
can
seen
too.
that. She
Yeah.
left the show around the same time that Henry was still being arrested for
Stuff.
embezzling and all other kinds of shady
Yeah.
stuff. And so she doesn't have this like transformative
Yeah.
image that her mother does.
Yeah.
And I can understand where she's coming from because all she knows Henry Gowan for is the fact that
He let the
he's
miners
he's
die.
partially responsible for the
Hmm.
reason that her dad died.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's
Oh.
Molly and Molly and Rosaline are one
Hmm.
of the few from the original mining widows
Yes.
that never actually found somebody to like move on.
Hmm.
And like she doesn't have a stepdad
No.
or she doesn't have that. It's always been just her dad who died in the mine. So
Hmm.
I completely understand where she's coming
Yeah.
from. And I wanted to like root for Henry at this point, but I'm like, I really understand where Rosaline's coming from.
Hmm.
I do. I do.
Yeah. I think the last time we heard of Rosaline, if I remember correctly, it was in the episode in season 4 when Robert fibs about the bear and Molly is in the mercantile with someone. I can't remember who, but she mentions how Rosaline saw the bear or something
Hmm.
along those lines. So I
Yes. Yeah.
think that's the last time we've heard of her. And then she went
It's
to the
been a
garden.
while. Yeah. And Henry was still very much in some
Yeah.
shady doings in
Yeah.
season 4.
Or
So
yeah.
Yeah, she hasn't seen any of that
Yeah.
redemption at all.
Cough, cough, Ray Wyatt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, until he defended Bill Avery, which
Yeah, but she wasn't even there to see that.
no.
So, yeah.
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 Yeah. Moving on to Rosaline's second talk at school with Elizabeth. She loves the kids she nannies, and it's a job that's 6 days a week. She was seeing someone. He wanted her to get married, but he didn't want her to work. And she wants to make a difference in her life, like Elizabeth has, or Florence Nightingale.
Mm-hmm. Or Faith, which Faith
Or
had a
Faith, yeah.
similar situation. Fiance who didn't want her to work.
Yeah.
Didn't want her to play Florence
Yeah.
Nightingale as he told her.
Yeah.
I was a little surprised Faith wasn't brought into this storyline, especially with Rosaline wanting to be a nurse.
Yeah.
I have a feeling it might lead to that later on.
Yeah. She
Possibly
was
May
mentioned, but
also. Yeah. But yeah, it was interesting. I saw a real parallel between Rosalie and Faith's story.
yeah. Yeah.
And I love how all of these these old students of Elizabeth's, they're all growing up and they're all inspired by her.
Yes.
And I love that.
Me
It's
too.
very cool to see.
Yeah.
They're all inspired by her.
Yes. Just really quickly before we move on to another scene, I just got to mention once again, Elizabeth has a talk with Molly and Florence at the Mercantile, and they talk of Rosaline's move to Charleston, which is where I'm from.
Oh my gosh! No way! I had no
That's
idea.
where I live, yeah.
Oh my gosh! That's hilarious! Wow.
Yeah, when I heard that, I was like, wait, Charleston, that's me.
You're like, that's where I'm from. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. You should have
Yeah.
tweeted something out
I
about
did.
it.
I think I did.
Oh,
And
you did? Okay, yeah.
I think Brian retweeted it.
Oh my gosh, that's
Or maybe he
hilarious.
retweeted the one about South Carolina because I also tweeted about that.
I see. That's so funny. Wow.
Yeah.
What are the odds?
I know. I was like, wow, a Charleston mention on When Calls the Heart.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that is pretty funny.
In that scene, they also talk about her job and her dream of being a nurse. Molly knew about it, but I think she basically told Elizabeth that she thought Rosaline just kind of put it on the back burner. So.
Yeah. I think I was a little bit disappointed that Molly wasn't really in on it, and I was a little bit disappointed that Molly wasn't the first person we saw Rosaline with.
Yeah,
but
that
I
did
can understand.
disappoint me
Yeah,
too.
I was a little bit like, come on. But Molly hasn't had a story this season that much.
Yeah.
I would love to see this kind of be her moment.
Yeah.
And I was a little bit disappointed, but it makes sense because Rosalie is kind of keeping all this to herself because she doesn't want to pressure anybody. She knows her mom is not as fluid with, cash as some of the other people in town. And, her mom, she's all her mom has. So I think she doesn't want to rock the boat, which I can understand. But I do wish Molly had been a little bit more central to this storyline.
Agreed. Yeah. Elizabeth has a talk with Lucas in the saloon. She tells him about Rosaline and how she stopped speaking for a while after losing her father. She lost her voice, which we already knew from season 1. But I did love that callback to that episode.
Yeah, I like how she explained that.
Yes. And Lucas suggests offering Rosaline a job at the hotel to help her earn money for a nursing school, which I thought was very thoughtful of him.
Yeah, it definitely was.
Elizabeth's talk with Rosemary in town, talking about the special edition of the Valley Voice. Lucas's surprise and the offer for Rosaline. I love how Rosemary is like coming up with the headline that says "Local girl comes home."
Yeah.
Elizabeth's like, shh, because Rosaline's literally like right there across the street.
Yeah. I do find some of Rosemary's story ideas to be pretty funny because
Yeah.
some of them are stuff that personally I wouldn't want written in the local paper. But
Yeah.
I guess Rosaline coming home, it does make sense because she's kind of the
Yeah.
senior who like is coming home. But there were a few
Yes.
other stories
Yeah.
in Rosemary's paper that I was kind of like,
Yeah. Now, this isn't a criticism of Rosemary because I love Rosemary. She is one of my
oh, I
favorite
adore Rosemary.
characters.
Yes.
But in a way, she kind of reminds me of Harriet Olsen in Little House on the Prairie.
Yes, yes, I can see that. See, I haven't seen Little House, but I know enough about Mrs. Olsen to know that she has the same energy as
Oh,
Rosemary.
that Mrs. Olsen.
Yes, yes. She's if you think Rosemary is crazy, Mrs. Olsen is a whole nother level of
Yes.
crazy.
Yep. Except Rosemary is like the nicer version of
Yeah,
Mrs.
she's the
Olsen.
comical, well-meaning version.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh. Going back to Hope Valley and not Walnut Grove, Elizabeth and Rosaline have a talk in the library. Rosaline mentions how she can never get to the library, and even if she could, she wouldn't have time to read. Elizabeth tells Rosaline she should talk to her mom about wanting to still be a nurse and that she could do an apprenticeship with Faith after nursing school.
Mm-hmm.
And then she
Yeah.
mentions the offer from Lucas and she says she'll think about it.
Right. Yes. And I think it's interesting because this nannying job that she
Yeah.
has, it's very intense.
Mm-hmm.
6.5 days a week.
Yeah.
If she doesn't even have time to read, that means she's
That's
working
a
very
lot.
hard.
Yeah.
Um, she's moving to South Carolina, possibly.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me very much of some of the babysitting jobs that Anne of Green Gables did in the earlier parts of Anne's life. She's the nanny or like kind of the like just the mother's helper for these big families, and a lot of times she's just kind of just getting worked very hard and with very little time to do anything else. And in Rosaline's case, she's only home for a week technically.
Yeah.
So she's not even getting that much time
Yeah.
off. So I think that despite what Rosaline says about like, liking this job, I really don't think that it's a good situation for her.
Yeah.
And
She's
I think
working too
that
much. Yeah.
yeah, she's working too much. She has a possible suitor who's kind of controlling and
Yeah, not good.
not good. Yeah, and she's still very young.
Yeah.
So in that way very influential.
Yeah.
And I think that coming back to Hope Valley, if she decides to stay, would be really good for her because it would kind of help her to get out of some of those really sticky situations. And I think that's part of the reason why I want her to continue to be a series regular, because I think she's in a very bad situation right now, even if she's not really letting on to that. And I think that Hope Valley could be the answer to fixing that.
This was one of my favorite scenes in the episode.
For sure.
Very good. Yeah.
Yes. And it ended very, very dramatically. Her walking out of the library, seeing Henry.
Yes.
And just like this look of like disgust on
Terror.
her face. Because she's just like terror, disgust, like frustration that the town would like accept him after everything. And yeah, it's very, very powerful.
I love the line before she walks out of the library to Elizabeth, "You'll always be my favorite teacher." That was one of my favorite quotes of the episode.
Yes, for sure. I love that. I even made like a special quote edit on my
that was beautiful.
Instagram. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I was like, that's a good line, and I think it was very sweet. Yeah.
And the music sounded familiar too. I can't put a finger on what scenes we've heard it in, but
so I don't know about the library scene, but the scene where she walks out of the library
and sees Henry,
that music is very clearly the music where it's like a rendition of the music where Elizabeth runs after Jack as he's riding away for the Northern Territories. And she's like, Jack! Yeah, when she shouts Jack and he comes back, gets off the horse and kisses her, it's a rendition of that. So yeah. They haven't used that in a long time. Yeah, they haven't used that in a long time, and I think that's why the scene stood out to me, because I was like, they're using the music again.
Yeah. Very good placement there.
Yes, for sure. Yes.
Henry has a talk with Elizabeth. She thinks that he and Rosaline could help each other out. And then we hear the line, "I feel like I'm the last person she'd want to talk to."
Yeah.
And
poor Henry
suggests he try making things right because he owes it to himself and to her.
Hope Valley has this thing where sometimes they try to make something happen, or they try to rush to healing sometimes, and I feel like in this situation that's not the correct move. I'm with Henry on this one. I'm not really with Elizabeth on this one. I know Elizabeth means well, and I know Elizabeth is just literally all she wants is for everyone to get along. That's just who she is. She wants everyone to get along. But this is some serious trauma here. This is a lot. And that's asking a lot to not only for Henry to put himself out there, but for Rosaline to be approached by him. That's asking a lot. Because it's just it's a lot, and I'm with Henry on this one. I think they need to let it happen naturally. As opposed to putting them in the same room together and hoping it works out, because it could go very badly.
Yeah, it could.
In that she could not forgive Henry. And then Henry has to live with that. I mean, it could go very badly. So
I hope it doesn't go that way.
I don't think it's going to go that way. I don't think
it will,
but I do think if he had approached her that soon, it would have gone that way. So I think it's right that he waited.
Yes, so, I think so too. Molly and Rosaline's second talk, they are walking through town and they're talking about her going to nursing school, and Rosaline just kind of like, pushes the thought away. Brushes it off. And Molly says, "You still blush when you fib." And
cute.
They continue talking, and you can see Henry is overhearing the conversation. I knew right away he was going to be the one to start the scholarship.
I didn't, because I didn't know he had the money for that.
Well, I didn't either, but I figured.
Yeah, I didn't know he had the money for that, so he was just kind of out of contention. And in my mind, I'm still kind of like, how did he get the money, or how does he still have the money? But I don't know. I guess he still has it from the oil company.
He could,
that's why he wasn't really a contender in my mind. But it made so much sense, obviously. Yeah. Made sense for it to be him.
Yes. Lucas and Elizabeth talk about this exact thing, and Elizabeth thinks it's generous, but it won't help make things right between the two of them.
Yeah.
Unless he tells her.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I tend to agree with that.
Yeah.
You can't make something right by just throwing
Yeah.
money at it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it requires, some emotional
Mhm.
muscle work,
Yeah.
which, like I said, I don't think it should be forced, but
Yeah.
I do think that throwing money at the problem is not going to fix it.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Elizabeth, Molly, Florence, and Rosaline in the saloon, they talk about the scholarship for all of the Hope Valley children, and there is no application required. So Rosaline can go to
Oh,
nursing school,
oh my gosh. Yay.
which is
Yeah.
awesome.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I'm part of me is wondering, is she going to actually leave for nursing school, or is she going
I
to
don't
stick around and
know.
intern for a little while?
I don't know.
Maybe this is just me trying to manifest her staying, but
Okay,
I
I
don't know. I would
do
be cool with that.
have an idea based on something Lee and Rosemary said about Goldie. And since we're there, why don't we just talk about Lee and Rosemary?
Sure, yeah, we could do that.
Lee is at work while watching Goldie, and then Rosemary comes in and they start talking about how Elizabeth had babysitters for little Jack, and she suggests they try the same thing for Goldie. But Lee says no because he doesn't want to miss time with his daughter, which is understandable completely. Part of me wonders, though, are they going to ask Rosaline to be their nanny?
Aha. That I've seen that floated around a little bit on social media, and I think it's very
I'm
possible.
all for that.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. Because for the longest time it was little Jack who needed a nanny, but now
Yeah.
it's the Coulters because they both work and they're both are very busy.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think Rosalie might be the one for the job. So
It's
yeah,
possible.
good thinking there. Good
Oh,
thinking
thanks.
there. Yeah. So hopefully she won't go anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, fingers
Yeah.
crossed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm totally
Yes.
all for that if it means
Yes.
she gets to stay longer.
Absolutely. Yes.
Going back just a little bit to before Rosemary gets there, Lee talking to Goldie in the slight baby voice about the trestle bridge while forgetting he's still on the phone was priceless. He's like, I can supply
Yes.
the lumber for that.
Yeah.
After he realizes that he's talking in the baby voice.
Yes. Yes. That was very funny.
Yes. Lee, I have to say, he earns Father of the Year award.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, we all knew Lee was gonna love fatherhood, but he's like
Yeah.
at a whole new level of loving it. He's like calling clients and like, hey, super cute. Yeah.
He was like, what was that? The fourth smile ever?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when they're that young, you are counting how many smiles there are because they
Yeah.
come few and far between. But I thought it
Yeah.
was so cute.
Yes. Lee and Rosemary at the Valley Voice and talking to Lucas. Lucas is there to place an ad for the Hope Valley Scholarship available to all current and former students of the Jack Thornton School by an anonymous donor, which we've already talked about is Henry. And then he tells them about the radio. And I love how before he mentions the radio, he's trying to keep the secret on the down low. And Rosemary's like, no one can stay anonymous, not in a town this size.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, in this case, it's kind of imperative that he stays anonymous. Like,
Yeah.
it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
But
Of course,
yeah,
that was
I
about
I
the
think
scholarship. But
yeah, yeah, I think that is pretty funny for
yeah.
Rosemary to be like, "Oh, nobody can stay anonymous." I mean, typically that is the case. I mean, you
Yeah.
look at the advice column, she'd
Yeah.
open a letter and be like, "Oh, so and so, this is
Yes.
I know what your problems are," and it's like, how do you know that? I mean,
Yeah.
Rosemary would make a very good detective. I will say that. So
Yes.
I think if anyone's gonna find out it's Henry, it's probably gonna be her.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so hopefully they can keep that a secret for long enough to
Yes.
that it needs to be.
Yeah. We'll talk about this in just a little bit, but on the way to the saloon to see the radio, Lee and Rosemary have a brief talk about Joseph's decision. And I love how she says, God will show you the way. That was another favorite quote of mine
Mm-hmm.
from this episode.
Yes, yes. I love that they're talking more about like God and faith and
Yes, me too.
religion this year among all of the characters, not just Joseph. So I really like
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To end their storyline, Lee offers Richard Wolfe partner at the mill, and he accepted, which I loved.
Yeah, and I'm happy because that means that Richard and the Wolf family
The
will be
Wolfe
staying in town.
family can stay. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I know Robert and Sarah were a little bit worried about that. We had
Yeah.
Sarah saying like, "Oh, is my plant gonna be lonely if we leave Hope Valley?" But you
Yeah.
know, Joseph doesn't want the promotion, so
No.
Richard is gonna take it, and I think
Yeah.
that's perfect because if anyone's gonna do a good job, it's him because he's been there for years. So
Yes.
I think, yeah,
I
they're
think,
they're still filling Jesse's shoes from like a
yeah.
couple seasons back, which
Yeah.
is interesting to me.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Going into the Canfields, because we were just talking about the partnership that Joseph turned down, he and Minnie have a talk in the cafe about being a full-time pastor, which could mean he would have time to take on Eagle Creek as well. I loved
Mm-hmm.
Minnie's support, and she said you'd finally be able to concentrate on what you were put on this earth to do. And, he says he doesn't want to quit on Lee. She follows up by saying, Lee's your friend. He wants what's best for you. You just have to let him know what that is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think Joseph and Lee are good friends.
Yeah.
Like they're on equal ground even if Lee
Yeah.
is his boss.
Yeah.
And I think that Joseph's calling has always been to be a pastor. And
Mm-hmm.
he's avoided it sometimes, and sometimes he's just overcommitting to things. Like he told Nathan he doesn't know how to say no.
Yeah.
Um he's just a little overworked, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that what he really wants to focus on is being the pastor, but he also wants to do his due diligence everywhere else. And I think Minnie encouraging him to just go for the pastorship is the right call
Yes.
because Eagle Creek needs that, and
Yes.
there have been other people in town helping that specific town as well.
Mm-hmm.
And you have Nathan going over there because they don't have a Mountie. You have Faith going over like to different towns because they don't have a doctor.
Doctor.
Now, yeah, so doctor, physical, medical protection, protection from harm,
Mm-hmm.
and then also spiritual health needs to be attended to too.
Yes.
So I think Joseph is kind of falling in line with those two public
Yes.
servants as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's
Agree.
the right call. Yeah.
And we might have already talked about this a little bit, but I feel like those three things are all connected to this storyline with the springs and the
Mm-hmm.
water issue, because
Yes.
they don't have a pastor, they don't have a doctor, and they don't have a Mountie.
Yes. Yes. I completely agree because I'm sure that once the drought happened, a lot of people perhaps they didn't
They
go to church
left.
anymore because maybe they just didn't believe in God. Like kind of like after the mine blew up,
Yeah.
there was a big struggle in the community with the spiritual aspect. I
Yes.
think also if people are dying out or if they're moving
Mhm.
away from Eagle Creek, you're
I
not
mean,
going to need a
there's
full-time bounty.
yeah.
Yeah. Just like you're not going to need a congregation, or at
Yeah.
least that's the implication. And then
Yeah.
as for the doctor, I would dare to say that it could be maybe the doctor died. Maybe the doctor went
Possible.
to other
Yeah.
towns for the same reason. I don't know.
Mhm.
But for whatever reason, all of the public servants of Hope Valley are reaching out and they're branching
Yeah.
out. Instead of other places coming to Hope Valley, Hope
Mhm.
Valley is going to other places.
Yep.
And it's
Mhm.
interesting. And I think Hope Valley is in a place where they can finally do that for other
Mhm.
towns.
Yeah.
They're not the little frontier town anymore that's like
No.
struggling to survive. They're getting close to like city status. So
Mhm.
or as Kevin would say, they're getting close to a hamlet as opposed to a town.
Yeah.
He said that in an interview. I
Yeah.
thought that was funny. But yeah, they're getting bigger and
Yeah.
they can reach more people
Yeah.
now. So I think Joseph is
Yeah.
definitely part of that
Yeah.
initiative.
This was another great moment in the episode, and it is Joseph's talk with Elizabeth. He mentions the thought about establishing regular office hours, not just on Sundays, and it won't conflict with school hours. Elizabeth says, "It sounds like there are big changes happening for you." Joseph says, "A bit of a crossroads." Elizabeth, "I know the feeling." She's worried about Henry. This was interesting to me. Now, this is just from what some Hearties are seeing, but I get the feeling she wasn't just talking about Henry.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it is definitely interesting. The wording is interesting because I don't feel like Henry is at a particular crossroads right now.
No.
I mean, not really. And she said she knew the feeling. She didn't say, "Oh, Henry knows the feeling." You know, it's
Mm-hmm.
like she knows the feeling. I'm kind of like, hmm,
Yeah.
huh, yeah,
And what's interesting is the word on the chalkboard, metamorphosis.
mm-hmm, yeah. Which, you know, I think most people listening know what that
What
word
that
means.
means.
Generally, what kind of connotations that has, whether it be in literature or like metaphorical
Or
examples,
scientifically.
scientifically too. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, and I think that we're not quite exploring that just yet, but I think we're starting to for both
Mm-hmm.
Elizabeth and Joseph. So
Yes. Again,
yeah.
I'm not 100% confident that this is going where a lot of us think it's going, but it's just what some of us are seeing.
Yeah. We're just saying some things we're noticing. We're
Yes.
not making any predictions
No.
here. We're not
Yeah.
trying to
Stir up
stir the
trouble.
pot.
Yeah.
we're just picking up on little things that we
Yes.
see here and there.
Yes.
So,
The family dinner with Lee and Rosemary. This was a great scene too.
yeah. Mhm.
It made me laugh when Rosemary says, "Radio is the future, or so I keep hearing." Even my mom and dad laughed at that line.
Yeah, that is pretty funny, and I could totally see her running her own radio show. Like
I actually
almost
would love to
oh,
see that.
it would be hilarious because it would be like Delilah, but the Rosemary version where she's doling out relationship advice and just like, yeah, I could totally see that playing
Yes.
Let Me Call You Sweetheart like
Yep.
24/7.
Yes. Yes.
I could totally see that. We need this
Okay.
to happen.
Writers, if you were listening, Lindsay Sturman, who we know you were the showrunner, if you happen to come across this, please write a story where Rosemary has her own radio show.
Yes, because the newspaper is great, but we don't actually get to hear 90% of what she actually writes.
Yeah.
But if we had a radio show, we'd get to hear everything.
Yes. Lee's toast to Joseph. And I love Joseph's response when he says, we're all given a certain amount of time on this earth, and it's up to each of us to figure out what we're here to do. That's great advice.
For sure. And I think that it's not something like the idea of mortality and like, you know, it's explored a lot in When Calls the Heart, but I feel like it hasn't really been touched on, like, oh, we only have certain amount of time, we need to do what we need to do. I feel like it hasn't really been touched on all that much in the last like 2 seasons or so. More so when with Ned and Florence and their storyline and how they got together. It was touched on then. But it was interesting to hear that in just like a regular conversation, not in like a big life or death situation, but just like, yeah, Joseph's always thinking about, you know, like the big picture, not just the one day at a time picture. He's looking at the big picture, and I think that's a really good perspective. And I think he has had a positive influence on Lee and the way Lee thinks too. Yeah. So
agreed.
I thought that was definitely good. And I loved the end of that scene where Leah's like, Joseph, my friend, you're fired. Joseph's like, I quit.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I'm so
nice little touch of humor at the end. Yeah.
Happy that Joseph is the pastor full time.
Yes. This has been something I have been begging for 3 seasons for Joseph now. And it's finally happening. Yes. I'm so happy. Yeah.
And even longer because Frank left halfway through season 5. So
yeah. So since season 5, we've been waiting for a full-time pastor. And now we finally
have it.
Yes. I'm so excited. Yes. I'm really, really happy.
Yes. So, thank you so much, Lindsay, and all of the writers.
Yes. Lindsay definitely did her homework. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes.
Yes. Moving into the radio storyline, which was a big part of this episode as well. We have Fiona and Mike in the saloon with Lucas and Ned. Now we get a few scenes spread out across the episode with them and the radio. The first one is Lucas showing them the radio, and it is, of course, Hope Valley's first. It will play music broadcast live from a New York City ballroom. But, of course, it's not working yet.
Yep. Classic When Calls the Heart. Yep. I feel like we're straight back to when the telephone arrived.
Yep.
Even a very similar scenario where Ned is the one to kind of mess it all up, and then Fiona's the one to kind of pick it all back up. We'll talk more about that in a minute, but it was a very similar scenario, and it kind of reminded me of how, you know, back in season 6, it was Abigail who was kind of heading up bringing the telephone. Yeah. Yep, and then now it's Lucas, who she said, you know, she was like one of the first to welcome him into the community.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. So it's almost like he's carrying on her legacy a little bit, and I like that.
Yes. I think it was even in the scene from Lori's last episode when they're outside the mayor's office and they have the cans with the string.
Yes.
And then she welcomes him, I think, at the end of the episode.
Yes. I remember that for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was a good moment.
Very memorable episodes for sure. Yeah.
Fiona believes the radio needs an antenna, but Lucas, Ned, and Mike dismiss the idea. That did kind of bother me a little bit. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I'm like, come on, guys. Like, if anyone knows anything about like this technology, it's gonna be Fiona. And also,
Mm-hmm.
like, don't dismiss her just because she's a
Yeah.
girl. Like, I mean, I get that girls don't always like know like about. I don't know. There's always this like, I don't know,
Yeah.
like a. There's always a stereotype
Yeah.
that women don't know how to work technology that well.
Apparently, they needed to be on the camping trip with Jack and Elizabeth when Elizabeth told the girls can do anything boys can do.
Yeah. Yeah. And luckily, in Fiona's way, which she always does this, but instead of like just standing there arguing with them,
She's like,
she
I'm
goes
gonna
into
go find an
action and
antenna.
she's like, you know what? I'm going to do it myself. I don't care.
Yeah.
And yeah, I
And
like
that
that.
she does. She talks to Joseph and she
Mhm.
shows him a sketch of the radio antenna. He compliments her knowledge of sound and she suggests steel because of durability or copper for conductivity. And then she mentions how she could maybe use both at the same
Mhm.
time.
Yes. I loved her scene between Joseph because it
That was a good
I
scene.
know we were promised these like pairings and different
Yeah.
scenes together, like scene partners that don't usually share scenes. And
Yeah.
this was one of those scenes where
The
you
good
don't
one.
really see a whole lot of Fiona and Joseph or
Yeah.
Fiona and anybody really, but I just loved that they had them two
Yeah.
in the scene together. And Joseph like firmly believing in her, affirming
That was
her,
sweet.
yeah, it was very sweet. And
Yes.
yeah, I think she's had a few moments like that where these people that she doesn't always talk to will kind of affirm her and then she'll keep going. Like
Mm-hmm.
back in season 7 it was Carson. He's like, "Don't let anyone make you
Yes.
feel that way." And then in season 9 it
Yeah.
was Nathan. Nathan's like, "Oh yeah, you don't need luck. You're smart." And
The
then
gooey butter cake scene.
the gooey butter cake scene. And then now Joseph is,
Yeah.
just like, "You're so smart with this stuff." So
Yeah.
sometimes she just needs that little shot in
Yes.
the arm from somebody
Yeah.
who maybe unlikely source of that, but
Yeah.
it's always nice. I like those
Yeah.
kind of scenes.
Me too. She shows off the antenna to Mike and Ned, and they are still kind of disregarding the idea.
Oh my
Ned's
god.
just like trying to fix it his
Uh
own way. Which is
I
fine.
distinctly remember watching that and I'm like to myself, I'm like, I think I even said it out loud with my family. I'm like, "Ned, don't you touch it. Don't touch it." Remember what happened last time.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I don't care if Ned can invent toasters or not. He
Yeah.
should not touch the radio. I don't care.
Fiona, Mike, and Ned hiding the radio from Jed Campbell. Now that was hilarious. And Fiona was like, an attractive box.
I was like, okay. I mean, I guess that works. Oh
Oh,
man. Yeah, that was really funny. They're all like trying to stand in the way, and I'm like,
yeah.
no, it's just an
Yeah.
attractive box.
And then, of course, Elizabeth comes in and she sees it and she's like, is that a radio? And then Lucas tells her, yes, it's a radio.
Yes. Yeah.
And then that's the
And she likes
scene
the idea.
when we see the sparks come up from the radio.
Yes. I felt so bad for Lucas because,
I know. He was like,
he's like, he orders the radio, he's all psyched, and then all of a sudden, Ned gets his hands on it and it goes. I'm
yeah.
like, that's exactly what happened with the phone when it first got installed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We get to the end of the episode, and Fiona does the honor of turning the radio on. And thank you, Ned, for saying this, as it should have been from the beginning.
Yeah. Also, I liked how all the guys kind of made it up to her in the end.
Yes.
Like, Lucas is like, "Oh, will you do the honors?" Because they all kind of acknowledged, yeah, she's the only reason this is going to work tonight.
Yep.
And yeah, like you said, Ned, spot on. It should have been her from the very beginning.
Yep. There's static at first, and then, of
Mhm.
course, it starts working. And Rosemary, being the dramatic person that she is like music out of thin air.
It's like, yeah, that's not how it works, but okay.
Oh my gosh.
Oh
Oh.
man.
And then
Yeah,
everyone
she's
dances to the Charleston, I believe. I read somewhere on
Mhm.
social media.
Yeah, it was a much faster
Mm-hmm.
dance.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting that from a ballroom in New York City. I was expecting something a little slower, but I could see the Charleston. I
Yeah.
could see that. That would be fun.
Yes. And we'll talk about more of this dancing in a little bit, but I do have to mention the reaction Rosaline had to her mother asking her to join in was hilarious. She's like,
That was so
"Ooh."
funny. Yes. When I was Rosaline's age, I remember going to weddings and my mom loves to dance. She'd be like, "Come on, let's go dance." I'd be like, "No." But after college, I was like, "Okay, I'm out there on the dance floor."
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Now I'm Fiona. I'm like dragging Mike out, just like, in the middle. But early on, I was Rosaline. I
Yeah.
didn't want to do it.
Sometimes I have my moments where I'm like Rosaline. I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes I
That was
feel
very funny.
awkward dancing like in front of people.
That's fair. That's fair. I'm not a good dancer, so I do understand that.
Even at prom, my junior and senior year, I was like kind of timid. I mean, I did dance,
Yeah. It
but I
took
would just
me
be
almost
like,
all 4 years of college to actually warm up to the idea.
yeah.
I will say that. Yeah.
Most of my moves were just like,
Yeah.
or something along
Just kind
those
of
lines.
go with the music. Yeah.
Yeah. And funny story, speaking of prom, I know we're getting off track, but I don't know if I've told you this. My senior year, I was crowned prom queen. Totally was not expecting that.
You did not tell me that. Oh my gosh.
And the guy in my class, who of course I'm good friends with, we had a small class. We were standing there and, just in like the regular kind of dance position. And I'm not even joking. The DJ kept changing the song like every 5 seconds. So we never really had a prom king and queen dance.
Oh my gosh. What the heck? Why? That's
It was
so
so
bizarre.
awkward. And then another guy in my class who is very sweet too, he walks up and starts dancing with me when the
Oh,
DJ finally take the song.
oh, that stinks.
But what a fun night. Such a good memory.
Mhm. Yeah.
Going back to Hope Valley and When Calls to Heart, why don't we just talk about Faith's storyline with Mr. Hunter? Oh, Mr.
Mhm.
Hunter.
Oh my gosh.
He was a pill.
He was a pill and a half. That was, oh my gosh.
Yes.
I yeah, I mean, obviously Faith has had to deal with her share
Yeah.
of discrimination,
Yeah.
even from Carson
Yeah.
sometimes. Uh, and it's just this was like outright like
Yeah.
just wrong. And
Yeah.
it's like, dude, she's literally saving your life, and you're just
Yes.
like,
Nathan comes in with Mr. Hunter. He is overheated and dehydrated. Faith gives him a cup of water and one question. That was a very quick reaction.
yeah. It was like one little bit of water, and instantly he's like
Um,
revived. I was like, uh, no,
I
not
don't
how
think
that
it's
works.
that fast.
Yeah, I've never been dehydrated, but I have passed out before, and
Oof.
it was never like boom, I'm good.
Yeah,
Never.
no.
Yeah, so I was a little taken aback by that. And that
Uh,
not only was he conscious enough to like sit up and look around, but also conscious enough to discriminate.
Asking for a proper doctor.
Yeah. Rude, sir. Rude.
As Stephanie,
you could see like the disappointment on Hickham's face, and then just like the pure frustration on Nathan's.
Yeah.
Like Faith is like trying to be calm.
Yeah.
But like Hickham's like, oh.
Yeah.
And Nathan's just like,
yeah.
Dude.
Yeah.
What is going on? Yeah.
As Stephanie Tanner would say, how rude.
Yeah.
Mike and May suggest that Faith give Mr. Hunter a piece of her mind. Of course, because he believes a woman can't be a doctor. Faith says, we may not like his attitude, but it's my duty as a physician to care for all patients, even the mean and ungrateful ones. What did you think about that line? I think that Faith was right in saying that.
I definitely think she's right. And you see a lot of nurses and doctors run into this problem
This situation.
In different medical TV shows and even just real life situations. You see that happen a lot, but it's just, it's frustrating because
it is.
They're not looking at the big picture. They're just looking at, the immediate problem. And it's the reversal situation happened to the Canfields, which is why Angela is blind, because they had a doctor discriminate against them. So Hope Valley is very accepting.
Yeah.
But there are others in the outside world of Hope Valley that are not. And that's why it's always so shocking when it happens in Hope Valley.
Yes.
Because it doesn't happen in Hope Valley. Yeah. Everyone's very accepting for the most part. I mean, granted, we have some, people not always, believing in female characters, but it's just, it's not something that happens with that much discrimination, and that's why it's so shocking, honestly.
Yes.
So
Mike pretending to be the doctor so Mr. Hunter will take his medicine. That was hilarious. He's like, Mr. Hunter, if you want my care, you will take this medicine from Nurse Carter without any questions.
I will say, how legal is that? It's not very legal, but
no,
we're not asking those questions. It was funny.
I didn't like the lying part to that, but it was hilarious.
It was very funny, yeah. And I appreciated that Mike didn't really want to go that route. He wanted
you could see on his face
able to get justice.
He didn't want to.
Also he didn't really want to do that. But in order to I think for Faith's line of thinking, she just wants the greater good of the patient.
Yes.
So.
Speaking of that, we have the scene with Faith, Mike, and May. His comment about May being the pharmacist. He's like, what is wrong with this town? And Mike is like, nothing is wrong with this town. And I'm not a doctor. She is.
Go Mike. Honestly, go Mike. We know Mike has a bunch of sisters and no brothers, so it makes total sense for Mike to feel this strongly about this patient is being extremely rude and putting down, both May and Faith, and I appreciated Mike's feisty, I'm not letting this go on any longer type thing. Yeah, because I think he. He cares about both of them, but also he comes from a family of mostly girls, except for him. So I think he understands about that.
Yeah. And Faith standing up for herself and May. I thought that was nice too. That was a great moment.
It definitely needed to happen because it's a problem she's going to run into more, I'm sure. But she can't always solve that problem by trying to hide it or go around it or whatever. And the best way to approach that is to prove them wrong, but also stand up for yourself. And we see Dr. Quinn and Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman
I've
do
never
that
watched that.
all the time. Okay, that show.
But I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, Andrea actually posted a story
Oh,
about
that's
that
awesome.
show
Yeah.
right after this episode because there's a lot of correlation. Dr. Quinn from the very first episode is dealing with this discrimination.
Yeah.
And she does throughout the entire series,
Yeah.
which is 6 seasons. And she proves herself to a lot of people by the end. But much more in a similar approach to Faith's second reaction of, I'm going to stand up to myself and prove you wrong, as opposed to trying to, like, hide it, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. And I'll have to check out that show.
You do need to. It's so good.
I've heard it's really good. I also loved how Andrea was promoting When Calls the Heart without promoting When Calls the Heart.
Yeah. Definitely, yes. Oh, I've been hoping for more Dr. Quinn-esque storylines for Faith.
Yeah.
So I was very happy when they made that correlation, and then she posted right after, and I'm like, yeah.
To end this scene, I love how Mike says, and how about showing them a little gratitude? And Mr. Hunter apologizes. Thank you.
Yes. He did apologize very fast. But I think when he realized that his life was in their hands, he's kind of like, okay, I wouldn't have survived without them. So I think once he got the idea, I think. Yeah. I don't think he's going to be making that mistake anytime soon.
Moving on to Bill, Madeline, and Jamie.
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
We knew this was going to happen. I just didn't know it was going to be like this. So
that fast.
Yeah. I don't know. It happened real fast. So.
The talk in the saloon, he gives her the land title contract, and she got a telegram from her husband's lawyer who needs her in Union City that day. But she will be back to Hope Valley in a few days.
Yeah.
And then this leads into her and Jamie leaving and having a brief interaction with Nathan and I think Bill too. And they leave. Nathan is like, so you sold her your land. That was nice of you. Nothing nice about it. It's a business decision. The cabin doesn't even have a kettle, so he decides he wants to grab some things before they return. And Nathan, he's like, a business decision. Right.
He knows. I feel like once Bill was like all in, he was like all in. He's like, I'm going for it. Obviously, he's not willing to admit what he's feeling. But it was pretty funny.
Yes.
Nathan just sees right through it. He's like, oh yeah, no, we know what's happening.
And he sees right through it again with the talk in the Mountie office. He's packing things for the cabin and wants Nathan's help. Nathan's like, anything for love. And Bill's like, love? Who said anything about love?
Yeah, that was very funny. I love seeing Nathan tease Bill a little bit. It kind of just, it's very funny. I think Nathan is a little bit of a matchmaker here. It's very funny.
Yeah.
He's just enjoying seeing Bill like in this like, oh, I'm in love stage.
Yes.
It's very funny.
Yeah. We will talk a little bit more about the scene packing up in just a few minutes, but Bill and Nathan ride out to the cabin. And, of course, here is where the trouble starts. A man comes out of the cabin named Bernard Montague. He's supposedly engaged to Madeline.
Oh, my gosh. I don't know. I
think he might be part of Union City Holdings.
Oh, I know he is. I think it's a problem. I think he's a problem. And I think it's pretty clear that Madeline played Bill. She played him very hard, and I don't think he's actually Madeline's fiance. I really don't.
I don't think so.
Think he's posing as Madeline's fiance.
Yeah.
But I do think that Bill's gonna be pretty upset about it.
You could already see he was upset by that cliffhanger facial expression.
Yeah, but that was definitely a cliffhanger, and it's funny because like the whole episode I've like thought about different parts of it. I actually forgot about this scene through most of it, even though it was the cliffhanger. I just knew something big happened.
Yeah.
And then when I thought about it, I'm like, oh shoot, like Madeline is engaged to somebody, like engaged. And it's gonna lead to some trouble, I think. But I don't think they're actually engaged. That's my take.
I feel like we've seen a storyline like this involving Bill, where he's having feelings for someone that is engaged, or maybe it was someone else that was posing as engaged.
Yes. I
can't put my finger on who.
You know what? No, it was actually Bill was Madeline in the situation. He's dating Abigail, and then his ex-wife showed up.
Okay, yes, that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah.
So yeah, he was in the position that Madeline was in.
Yeah.
And I almost feel like perhaps they might bring that into it. Like he's like, oh yeah, one time I, deceived Abigail, and then my ex-wife showed up and blah, blah. So maybe he'll be a little more understanding with Madeline for that reason. But it also reminded me very much of the storyline between Mei Su and
I was
Nathan
about to say that
last season with fake fiancés showing up. And
gosh, what is his name?
Jeffrey.
Jeffrey, yes.
Yeah, good old Jeffrey.
Good old Jeffrey.
Yeah. So it reminded me a little bit of that. Kind of hoping we don't go down that road a little bit. I kind of hope we I just want straightforward answers here. Yeah, so we will see. But we're kind of going down that path again. So we'll see.
Going into one of our favorite characters, of course, Nathan. Why don't we just talk about him for a little bit?
Yeah. It's funny because the first scene with Nathan in this episode, he's walking Faith to the infirmary, and she's like, oh, this is the second time this week you've done this. And, like, she can kind of tell he's, like, trying very hard, but at the same time, he's visibly distracted. Like, visibly not there, if that makes any sense. And he gets to the door, he has to like think for a minute, and then he's like, oh, maybe I can stop by for lunch or whatever. So it's very much he's putting in a lot of effort, and I think something like she picks up on something in that scene. You could definitely see the gears are turning in her head.
The scene that is probably the most talked about scene of this episode, besides the conversation with Faith, which we will discuss, the banana bread scene.
Yes.
That was a great scene between them.
It was, yes. I found it very, very interesting.
Me too, yeah.
That Elizabeth is like, oh, I have 2 of these. I don't even know what I'm going to do with them. And then Nathan's like, oh, well, if you're ever making banana bread, I know a few people who could take it off your hands, meaning like, him and Allie,
Just in case.
It's like, just in case. I'm like, Elizabeth, just in case what? I don't know. It was interesting to say the least. I'm not gonna. I felt something there. I don't know.
Too.
I felt a little something there. I'm not making any predictions, like I said earlier. Not making any predictions, but the scene
just what
happened.
We've seen.
yeah, the scene happened and it happened. They were.
Yeah.
I'm not making up what they said, or
No,
yeah.
and
So.
you definitely cannot deny the chemistry between Kevin and Aaron.
Yeah, they've got a lot of chemistry.
Yeah.
And even just her look when she's like, just in case, like,
Yeah.
very,
Like, what was that?
very. Yeah, I was like, what? What is going on here? Yeah, almost like
Uh,
she wants to make banana
and
bread for him.
speaking of looks, before we get into the talk with Faith, that look at the dance.
Yes, that was interesting because it did not need to happen if it's if it doesn't mean anything.
No, it did
Yeah,
not.
I was very like I was so shocked when she's dancing with Lucas and she looks over at Nathan. Like I like
She
audibly gasped.
does look
Yeah.
maybe a tad bit jealous.
I don't want to interpret things, but
No,
my first reaction was there is no other reason why she'd be looking over at Nathan.
no,
Yeah.
she
No
wasn't
other reason.
looking at Lucas, and Nathan wasn't looking at Faith.
Yeah. Exactly. There I was beyond shocked that that happened. And like I said, I'm not making any predictions. I'm not trying
Yeah,
to interpret anything.
yeah,
It just happened that way. So
yes.
I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know. But
This is,
she did look a
yeah,
little bit teensy weensy jealous there.
yeah.
So
This is a callback, in my opinion, to the dance in the season 6 finale with the look or the glance.
anyone who follows me on Instagram already knows that I agree with you. But yeah, it was definitely similar in that they were kind of like locking eyes across the dance
Yeah.
floor, but it was different in that Nathan actually had a dance partner this time.
Yeah.
And like they may not be together, which we'll talk about in a minute, but it's kind of a visualization that Nathan's not always going to be there forever.
No.
He's a eligible bachelor. He's got other women that have been interested in him, and more will come. He's not going to be there forever, and he's with somebody having a good time. And I think that
Yeah.
kind of kind of got Elizabeth thinking a little bit.
Yeah.
I think.
Agreed.
So yeah.
The talk with Faith in the infirmary. All I have to say is wow.
That scene, it was so well written,
Yeah.
well acted, well filmed. Everything about that scene was amazing. I would say it was one of the best scenes of the season this year.
Yeah.
There was so much like pure honesty in that scene, and usually in a situation like that where like the relationship's not really working and jiving and stuff, sometimes it can turn into like this snowball effect where it just kind of blows up and then everything like just ends poorly and there's burnt bridges and it's not good. But this was such an honest like conversation. They were able to end it very maturely, very well. If you want to talk about the dialogue a little bit more, it starts off really sweet. Nathan walks in.
You're patient more than you should be.
He's like, you're patient more than you should be. And yeah, it kind of reminded me of when Nathan and Elizabeth were walking down the street in season 7, and he said, your dedicate or your loyalty to your friends is very admirable.
Oh yes, that was the scene outside the infirmary.
Yes, and she kind of is like, but, and he's like, no, but, just an observation.
Yeah.
Nathan's very good at making observations like that about people. And,
yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
There's something in the way. There's always been. Or someone. Again, not making predictions, but just from what some of us have seen, I can't
Yeah.
help feeling he still hasn't gotten over Elizabeth.
And I know some
He's
people
still
are
in
out
love with
there,
her.
and yes. And I know there are some people out there that interpret this differently than that, and they interpret it as if the something in the way is coming from Faith's end,
Or
but the
friendship.
reason why, yeah, or that it's friendship, but in reality, I don't think that's true because the Nathan's reaction to that is, I don't know what's wrong with me. Him saying that, I don't know what's wrong with me. He wouldn't be saying that if the roadblock was from Faith. He would not be
No,
saying that. He knows the roadblock is him. He knows that he just can't put everything he needs
you can't.
into the relationship for it to work. And I think Faith really, like, she showed that she's a good friend and that she was able to, kind of spare them both from that, because that kind of relationship is very, very tough, not just on the person who's, like, receiving, affection that may not be completely from the heart, but also from Nathan. She even says to him, she's like, I know you're trying, and
I appreciate that.
I appreciate that. And he's been trying so hard this entire season. But I called it. I said in a few posts ago, maybe after episode 3, I want to say after episode 3, I said it just feels like
Friendship.
Nathan's trying to salvage a relationship that's not worth salvaging, in
Yeah.
that he's trying to make it work when really it's not supposed to work. And for a long time, I didn't think that was intentional, that we were supposed to feel that way about Nathan and Faith. I thought it was just me not understanding it, but
Yeah.
apparently, yeah, we were picking up on the
Yeah.
right things. And that is a huge credit to Andrea and Kevin,
Yes,
that
they
they were
killed
able to.
it.
Oh yeah, because for us to be able to pick up on that just as the audience without any context of what happened to them, but to just know something's not quite right, that's all them. That's amazing for
Yeah.
them to be able to portray that.
Yeah. Agree.
And I think this scene, it was just, their acting was beautiful.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
I'm glad they decided to remain friends.
Yeah, because I love their friendship.
Yeah.
It's such a good friendship. It's really
Yeah.
sweet, and I really respect Faith for being able to
Yeah.
come forward and say that, because she knows that it's very hard for Nathan to, like, accept that he just can't do it.
Yeah.
Like, he's trying, but it's just not going to work, and he wants
Yeah.
it to work for both of their sakes, and for Elizabeth's sake too, because he wants to move on. But yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, powerful scene there.
Yes. What a great episode.
Yeah, I think
This
it's
season.
along with the episode of Rosemary giving birth. It's my second favorite. I would
think
say this season.
it's mine too. I think I gave it an 8.5.
I think I gave it an 8.7.
7.
So.
Yeah.
Little higher than what I normally give it. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
That preview for next week. Why don't we just talk about that before we wrap up? Oh, it's going to be another jam-packed episode.
We know that the whole Henry and Rosaline storyline is gonna play out much more. Yeah, Henry's gonna actually grapple with a bit of that, and that's gonna be very interesting. We know that the whole Bill, Madeline, Montague situation is going to intensify.
Yeah.
Because Montague's gonna kind of be going around town and
talking to people.
Everyone thinks he's a nice guy and he's charming everybody, but I think there's a reason for that.
Yeah. Bill and Elizabeth talk.
Yes, Bill and Elizabeth
Henry.
Talk. Bill and Henry are going to talk, which is very interesting. Elizabeth is going to try to get to the bottom of it.
Lucas to Elizabeth says, I think you're searching for trouble because she wants to get to the bottom of it.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I think this is going to come back up.
Mm-hmm. I think I have a feeling, and this is just me suspecting, but I feel like Elizabeth is going to want to get to the bottom of it. And I think Lucas is not going to want her to get to the
He's
bottom
not
of
going to
it.
be happy.
Yeah, so I do think it might possibly come between them, but I don't quite know. But it's clear, though, that she is going to be discussing the situation with Nathan. Yes, so
There's the
maybe
county
Nathan will be
office
the one to help her
scene.
with the investigation.
I
Or at
think
least maybe she'll start it and he'll finish it type thing,
yeah,
you know.
like working
We
together.
know,
Kind of like
yeah.
old times with Jack and Elizabeth.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, even before Jack and Elizabeth were together, they were working together on different Mountie cases. So, yeah, it's kind of that same.
Rosaline.
Yeah. Yes, Rosaline. There you go. Yeah.
I mean, that scene when she runs into the jail with the pastor and she's like, I told you about Wendell, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. Yes.
And then the one before that.
Yes.
He's like, city girl, rattle a mile a minute. I'm just a country boy who needs to understand things.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Classic scene.
Yep. Lots of classic scenes with Jack and Elizabeth doing kind of things.
My theory, I feel like, now I don't know if this is going to actually play out the way I'm leaning towards, but I wonder if Elizabeth is going to get herself in danger and then Nathan is going to save her somehow.
I don't really know.
It's hard to tell.
It's very hard to tell. Part of my instinct is that Elizabeth might be in on the like helping Bill part, like almost like the emotional support part for Bill and just kind of figuring out what's going on. And then Nathan might be actually investigating the Mountie side of things. And as we know, this is episode 8. In episode 9, that is about Nathan getting into the middle of a land dispute and in danger. So
because we know there's a life and death situation.
Yes, I do think that
we know
episode 8 is going to be the precursor to that. So I don't know if Elizabeth will necessarily be in danger, but I do know that Nathan's going to be in danger, and I think Elizabeth might begin the investigation and Nathan finishes it.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm coming from.
Aaron did say there was a life or death situation, and I feel like it's more likely that Nathan is going to be that person. Yeah.
I just can't think of anybody else who, like that could be. I don't think it's the patient in this past episode. I don't think that's what it is. I don't think it's Rosemary's birth. And I really can't think what else it would possibly be. The only real peril is going to be with Nathan and the Mountie stuff. So I do think that that episode, something's going to happen there.
There is a photo from episode 9 that Star Watch Byline posted. Shout out if you're listening. And it's of Elizabeth running down the street with a note in her hand, and she has a concerned look on her face.
Yes.
So part of me wonders if it's going to be a parallel to the season 7 finale.
Well, see,
the danger part.
I want to believe that, but at the same time, I do think that the telegram that she has in her hand actually has to do with the governor coming.
It could,
early.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's more what it has to do. So
yeah, that could very well be.
Yeah, I'm just saying this to lower expectations.
Yeah, I'm just throwing ideas out there.
But you could be totally right. You could be totally correct. And I do think whatever happens with Nathan and this danger, I do think that's going to be the reason that he ends up getting a medal later on in the season.
Yeah, I think so too.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's an interesting little tidbit there. So.
Yeah, I'm just throwing ideas out there. Yours
Yeah, I totally get it for sure.
Yeah.
Yes. So
things are getting interesting.
They are. That's why I liked this episode, I think, because we're moving towards some very intriguing plot lines.
Yeah. We were told by Kevin things will start picking up.
Yeah, which he was clearly right.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing all of that.
I'm very excited.
Everything coming
up. No matter what happens, I'm just very excited because it feels like we're getting a really good story this year.
Yes, agree.
I mean, I know that the first half of the season, episode 1 to episode 6, is a little slower, a little more focused on the cultures, which was great, but a lot of the other plots were kind of waiting a little bit to get started. But now I feel like we're off to the races. We're in the final sprint, and it's starting to pick up, and I think the stories are going to be really good. And to me, I don't care what happens in the end. I mean, obviously, I want all of the characters to be happy in the end and everything, but I'm just excited to see where it goes. I'm very excited. So
yes,
definitely. I like what I see. So
yeah, Team Hope Valley, I think, is a great way to end off this episode.
Yes, I agree.
All right, Hearties. I think that wraps up our review of When Calls the Heart, Season 10, Episode 7. If you enjoyed this episode and want to share your thoughts or any theories that you may have about the rest of the season, feel free to leave them in the comments of this video. And be sure to subscribe to this channel so you can stay up to date for all of our reviews for episodes 8 through 12, as well as any of my movie reviews from Hallmark, Great American Family, or Up TV. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you have a great day or night wherever you are in the world, and we will see you next week. We love y'all. Bye!
Bye!